Good morning, everybody, and
How do I get
welcome to the BioNutri webinar today. It's my pleasure to discuss clinical aspects and nutrition for the liver and gallbladder. So without further ado, you're all muted at the moment, but if you've got any questions, please do just write them in, and we won't answer them as we're going along, but we will answer them for you at the end if there's anything that you want to know. So let's make a start. So the liver, rather important. It's a massive organ, as you can see there. I've put a picture up of where it's situated. I think we all know where that is. And it is the primary organ of detoxification. And you appreciate that everything we eat, breathe, and absorb needs to be dealt with. And its main functions, of course, are detox, metabolism, and storage, being an interface between the stomach and the GI tract. It has a huge adaptive capacity, but it's an organ which will function and carry on with no awareness of serious problems. It's got no pain receptors until tolerance is reached, and then disease can occur quite quickly. And it has the ability to spring clean itself without us needing to do too much, providing it gets the proper nourishment. And of course, we all know that a lot of our clients are on poor diets, which can undermine its processes. For me, it's the central cog of a very large wheel, and it's very important as the second stage of digestion. And it needs a broad range of amino acids, vitamins, and minerals. But of course, if anybody's on limited diet, refined junk foods, restrictive or fad diets, and also these ritualistic detoxes, which may go on, then potentially people are lacking key liver nutrients, and this can cause a problem. Also, sometimes people use powerful herbs in quite large amounts in isolation, and this can upset the liver and cause varying unforced outcomes, because the liver itself, as it needs these broad spectrum of nutrients, doing using a herb in isolation, which might shake it up, could cause symptoms that you didn't want. And of course, you will appreciate that the liver's diverse functions, digestive system to every other system in the body. And importantly, when we're looking at helping the nourishment of the liver, in turn, you'll get this ripple effect onto the immune system, the endocrine system, the nervous system, and also the cardiovascular system. It works very, very hard, and it does require 30% of cardiac output to perform. So overall, all metabolic cellular functions depend on the liver. And of course, I can't list all its functions, but it has more than 500 functions. So basically, I've put a few of the key ones that, of course, as practitioners, we have to deal with, being things like controlling glucose in the blood. So we have blood sugar issues, clearing the blood of particles and infections, including bacteria, helping to neutralize drugs and toxins. Very often we see our clients on polypharmacy or some sort of drug or another. Manufacturing bile, which is very important. And I'm going to be talking a lot more about bile as we go further on into the lecture. Biotransformation and storage of nutrients, things like vitamin D, which is very important. Energy production. A lot of our clients are lacking in energy. Is it because their livers are subclinically optimal in function? Another thing which I always use tyrosine for is if somebody has a thyroid issue, because conversion of T4 to T3 thyroid hormone occurs in the liver, and also reverse T3 is manufactured as well, and we'll look at that a little later. Conversion of excess lactic acid. Sometimes people get burning in the joints, so the liver is implicated as far as that is concerned. And of course, importantly, the manufacture of cholesterol. And cholesterol does tend to get a bad name for itself, but it's very, very important for vitamin D, for bile acids, for the production of steroid hormones. Without cholesterol, then we do need it, and particularly the HDL cholesterol, which is so crucial to health. Manufacturing, breaking down and regulating hormones, so any sort of hormonal issue that may be going on, particularly with the reproductive hormones, and also the liver makes carriers for hormones, making enzymes and proteins which are responsible for most chemical reactions in the body, example those involved in blood clotting and repair of damaged tissues. So it can store as much as 1 litre of blood, and that's pretty important if somebody's kind of have an accident or they're fasting. And you tend to see that there is the potential for an increased permeability, a bit like leaky gut, I suppose, of the hepatic sinuses endothelium, and that can be caused by chlorine. So if people are drinking a lot of chlorine, or I'm thinking more if people swim a lot in swimming pools that are full of chlorine, and this can also disrupt the commensal bacteria. So the 30% of the cardiac output enters the liver every minute. And it's a major source also of cellular desaturated fats throughout the body, which is very important for lipid membranes. And we all know about the margarine, the trans fats, deranged fats, and that can cause an HDL problem as the liver cannot totally degrade them. And this in turn may increase LDL cholesterol. So I think people have got wise to margarine, but it's still quite a problem if people are still eating it. So it's a big storage site for vitamins A, D, E, K, B vitamins, vitamin C, choline, inositol, iron, copper, potassium, enzymes, lipids, water, carotenoids. And if you've got suboptimal liver function, then you may have less active vitamin D. Of course, we know that our climate and where we're positioned as far as our country is concerned can lead to poor vitamin D because of lack of sun, but also the liver is implicated as well. And 50% of the lymph is made in the liver. Liver lymph stores diffused protein, very useful as that is released during fasting. And if liver function is impaired, then lymph can become more toxic. So we need to improve both phases to rectify that. And you can see this showing up as excess toxins in the lymph, in the neck, the pelvis, the legs, underarms, middle ear, and there may be poor drainage. And if you see swollen glands in the throat, this could also indicate liver problems. Liver pathology, well, there's all sorts of markers, and I've made a list for you, and we'll come to those shortly, because a lot of people do ask me you know, what does this mean? What does that mean? And then when they're combined. So I've put in an explanation for that. But you may see elevated plasma cholesterol and triglycerides. You may see decreased levels of what we call LCAT, which is an enzyme which is very, very important in lipoprotein metabolism and maturation of the LDL. HDL, cholesterol, and you may see increased protein catabolism, so loss of lean body mass, and you tend to see that more in elderly people. So it's an oscillating organ. If you put your hand where the liver is, not on yourself, but on somebody else, you can feel that subtle movement of it. It flutters under your hand. And if the axis changes as a result of shock or surgery, it can alter the vitality of the liver. And because it expands and compresses with large quantities of blood stored in its vessels, you can appreciate that diuretics will affect its fluidity. And you can end up with pelvic congestion, fluid retention in the legs, and particularly if you look for swelling in the bottom of the right leg, but any fluid retention can be a sign of heart problems as well, so we don't get complacent about that. And of course, if there's a liver problem, then potentially there may be a gallbladder problem as well. As far as blood sugar goes, and this is one of the key areas that as practitioners we have to deal with, the liver is responsible for the metabolism and regulation of blood sugar. And very important for the storage of glucose is glycogen, which is insulin dependent. And of course, we know that people can get insulin resistance, and it can store fat in adipose tissue, and so on and so forth. I won't go through all the mechanisms of blood sugar, but just to say that people on high sugar and fat diets overrides and increases excretion of magnesium, and we all appreciate as practitioners that many of our clients are magnesium deficient, and certainly we use magnesium in a few of our products. We have a very good triple magnesium, which is very important. And this can lead on to higher insulin and cause damage. And liver glucose receptors are dependent on magnesium. So if somebody is stressed and their blood sugar is going awry, we usually turn to magnesium as one of the first ports of call in blood sugar regulation. And if the blood sugar isn't right, it may be difficult to manipulate both phases of the liver. And diseases, I never used to come across, I don't think I ever came across anybody that had cirrhosis. Occasionally someone popped up with hepatitis. And of course, people can get chemical damage from drugs, alcohol, environmental chemicals, and these can severely depress the liver's blood clotting manufacturing processes. And of course, vitamin K needs to be metabolized in the liver for blood clotting, and clinical signs may be increased menstrual flow, although that can be alongside hormone imbalance, but of course the liver can be implicated in that as well. Bleeding under the skin, easy bruising, broken capillaries, just as examples. And the liver is very much linked to hormonal issues, food allergies, chemical sensitivity. I've often seen people who, if they come into contact with someone got a perfume on, they can't stand it. They have this sensitivity to it. as an example. So that's quite an interesting one. People can become overweight. Of course, the skin is the second organ of elimination, so things can start to occur in the skin, such as acne. And of course, you've got the links to hormone balance there as well. High cholesterol, of course, because the liver is the cholesterol factory, and I could do an hour just on cholesterol on its own and all the implications with that. But of course, the liver is very much involved in the HDL, which goes around and mops up excess cholesterol and brings it back to the liver. And then we have the LDL, which hopefully doesn't raise up too high, but travels around the body and delivers cholesterol where it's needed. So there's that whole scenario of cholesterol, fatigue, depression, and hyperglycemia. So very much, if the liver's functioning well, then energy levels may well rise. Subclinical signs. You may see fatty stools. People may be constipated because they have a lack of bile. This is one of the key things. Very often constipation can be there for a number of reasons, not just through bacterial problems, but also peristalsis is slowed for a number of reasons, and the lack of bile is one of them. Diarrhea, this could be too much bile. Intolerance to fatty foods. People may have halitosis, that's a good indication, and body odour. Subclinical signs, you may see somebody's tongue may be yellowing. People tend to get itchy eyes. You can get paresthesia, so that's like pins and needles through liver disease and alcohol abuse. Sometimes you'll see a green hue around the mouth, double furrow between the eyebrows, and the skin is an excellent indicator. Oily nose and forehead, dry elsewhere, lots of spots, broken capillaries on the face, spots on the nose. And for me, one of the main markers is the eyes. If you have a look at somebody's eyes, you should have lovely whites of eyes. They shouldn't be dull, they should be bright. If they look creamy, then it could be indicative of a problem. And of course, the big one, nausea. People, particularly if they're eating a fatty meal and it's not being processed, then they may feel nauseous after that. Jaundice, of course, I've never ever had a client with jaundice, but the skin colour turns yellow-orange. You tend to see it in newborns. The white portion of the eye turns yellow, and this is caused by the increased level of bilirubin in the blood. Sometimes you'll get excessive thirst and frequent urination, although that may be more towards a diabetic type of situation like diabetes 2, enlargement and bloating of the abdomen and abdominal pain, but again, that could be anything, so we all have to turn detective on that one. Lack of colour and pigmentation of the stool, lack of appetite, which could lead to anemia and weight loss. Actually, I've seen quite a few queries running about where people have lost their appetite. So I think going to the central cog of everything, the liver, is one port of call. And of course, nausea and vomiting, although that could be something like food poisoning, but then I would still want to give full liver support in that situation. Night sweats. Now, the liver tends to have its highest detox capacity between 2 and 4 in the morning. Now, we all know that we get lots of clients who don't sleep very well, can't get off to sleep, wake up in the middle of the night, and that's for a variety of reasons. But as far as the liver's concerned, it could be a sign of pathology. It's not coping. It could be a gut infection. Could be hormones. It could be cortisol. It could be when people are going through the menopause. There's all sorts of reasons why people have sweats or wake up in the night. But it could be the liver, and it could be struggling. And heart attacks may occur during the night after a fatty meal. Now, the liver controls homocysteine levels in the blood. And of course, that's all part of the methylation cycle. But if you get too much homocysteine, that can cause nightmares, irritation to the brain and the heart, can cause restless sleep, early waking, and also fatigue on waking. So that's just an extra something to think about apart from the normal stuff that might cause that. And subclinical dysfunction risk, you're looking at junk fat diets. And I see that people are queuing around the block for McDonald's now, so that could be a problem. Farming community, herbicides, pesticides, coffee, alcohol and smoking, those three in effect start to induce phase 1 far more than normal. Industrial and service workers, so people who are working with chemicals, regular and heavy driving, so people are open to the traffic fumes, infection, of course, which generates its own toxins, long-term prescription drugs, anabolic steroids. We see quite a few people on polypharmacy, and poor liver function, of course, where you have gross malnourishment. And where stress underlies so much, and a lot of our patients come in with stress, and it may not just be emotional stress, but it could be chemical stress, it could be physical stress, it could be any type of stress, infectious stress on the body. And basically, what you're going to see with that is not only an impact immediately, probably on the stomach and also digestion, but decreased detoxification and metabolic function, immune suppression, decreased arterial pressure. That will affect the kidneys, who are working hard with the liver to affect toxin removal, increased capillary permeability, easier bruising, hypoxia. You can get metabolic toxicosis leading to poor iron conjugation and anemia. In fact, we've just brought out a brand new iron product called ferrolactin, which has been produced with bacteria and has very good bioavailability. And we, if anybody wants to know about that new product, and it's very different to other products, then do email me. My email address is at the end of this lecture. Loss of quality blood under stress to connective tissue. So everybody starts to get achy, get pains, you get energy, and the liver tends to be the organ of anger. You see people that get very judgmental, moody, angry. If you have anybody like that, hand them a box of Tannocin. It may help them. But poor clearance of free radicals plus lactic acid causing burning in the joints. Now, I won't read all these out. This is here for you when you get the slides. These are all the liver disease markers. Now, if you get a client that comes in and says, my ALT's up or my AST is up or whatever it might be, I've put an explanation on here for you what all these markers mean. And of course, in conjunction with the GP, maybe you can sort out some sort of protocol to address this. And don't forget, if somebody's been affected physically and particularly from the neck downwards, then I've put this on in case anybody's had an accident, and you can think, well, they've had an accident, it's affected the spine, it's affected probably the blood supply. What are they feeling? And I've put in the various places on here which might affect the liver and gallbladder, and also the spleen. So, and right down the bottom there, you can see there's a phrenic nerve, which is sympathetic, C3 to C5. If somebody has whiplash, usually that results in thyroid issues as well. So, and the one rib, which is the 10th on the right, if something goes wrong with that, then that can irritate the liver as well. Just, I've thrown that in because that might be indicative for you if somebody has had an accident. So we've got phase 1 and phase 2, which we all know and love, 6 pathways. And the body eliminates toxins either by directly neutralizing them or by excreting them in the urine, feces, lungs, and skin. And if we can't eliminate properly, then toxins tend to build up in the tissues, typically in fat storage. And the level and type of the internally produced toxins increase greatly when metabolic processes go awry. And this is typically as a result of nutritional deficiencies. So we're going back to what we do best, which is sorting people's diets out. If you get excess toxins, you could get toxic bile, irritated bile ducts, pancreatic duct, angiodenum, and you may get disruption of fat metabolism and a cause of nausea. And this is just a little slide on where the toxins, the main ones, come from. Most of them are from the digestive system, products and byproducts of digestion, oxidative stress, free radicals, dysbiosis, and leaky gut. And of course, at BioNutri, we do tend to major on gut products. So if anybody wants to know about those, then please do book in with me, and I can go through any of those with you, either on Zoom or on a Skype call. And any training that we do does carry CPD as well. Then we've got the exogenous ones, the usual stuff: smoking, alcohol, meds, high sugar, chlorine and fluorine, insecticides, traffic fumes, the biological inhalants, and of course, radiation. How many people are sitting on iPads, iPhones, computers for hours and hours on end, particularly the younger generation? I think it's quite worrying. And then we have explanation of phase 1 and phase 2. So I won't read all that out, but very often people will ask me, can I use X, Y, or Z nutrients because this person is on a drug? And of course, if it's involving cytochrome P450 enzymes, which you tend to find in the drug nutrient interaction books, then it's something that you need to be very careful of. And of course, phase 1, you're getting reactive molecules which may be more toxic produced than the parent molecule. And so it's very important that phase 2 is able to deal with all of this. And if not further metabolized by phase 2 conjugation, they may cause damage to proteins, so RNA and DNA within the cell. So pretty important that we've got enough going on nutritionally to deal with phase 2 detoxification. And then all the conjugates with the conjugating agent are excreted via the kidneys or the bowel. And here's phase 2 phytonutrients. Brassica, so cruciferous vegetables, curcumin from turmeric, the apiaceae or the carrot family, so you're looking at celeries, parsleys, phenols, anise, that sort of thing. Silymarin, which you find in milk thistle, and I'll be talking about that in a bit. Green tea and limonene. We have green tea running through a few of our products, and we've also just produced a new tea of green tea and gotu kola and turmeric, which I will also talk to you about shortly. But anything within those will help phase 2 on the phytonutrition. Another one in the Apiaceae family is gotu kola, the herb, and we have a tea, gotu kola tea, which you can use. So very often with gotu kola, it's used in stressful situations. When people get stressed, it affects the circulation to the lower leg, and gotu kola is very good for helping support that. So, and then you've got the conjugation substrates there, and glutathione, very, very important. It's interesting because I see a lot of people saying, where can I buy reduced glutathione, or how can I supplement glutathione? But there are 2 very important amino acids within tyrosine that actually make glutathione. But there are other food nutrients that will help with this, and we'll come on to that too. And there's a few other nutrients that will help with phase 2 conjugation substrates. A lot of those are actually in tyrosine. So with detoxification, we need to look at diminishing various things. Paracetamol affects the liver. Ibuprofen affects the kidneys. A lot of people take these OTC medicines, and I've put a list there for you. And we need to increase fluids, have a nutrient-rich diet, green tea, vegetable juices, beetroot, dandelion, spring greens, radish, artichokes, and lecithin. Now, I don't suppose any of our clients walk into a supermarket and think, right, what do I need for phase 1 and phase 2 detox and 6 pathways? Oh, I better have a little bit of beetroot, a bit of dandelion, maybe a bit of artichoke. I don't think people really know how to deal with artichokes, let alone how to eat them properly. So it's interesting that very much the liver nutrients are left behind. In France, dandelion is grown commercially and used in salads. And it's very, very important that people eat bitters, because it's the bitters that start the whole process of retracting the gallbladder and allowing bile to flow freely. And of course, in this country, people don't eat bitters. And if they have anything bitter at all, like a bitter leaf in salad, they'll just throw something sweet all over it to try and get rid of the taste. So bitters, very, very important that we have those within our meal, just to start the whole digestion process off. And of course, in France, they have the bitter aperitif as well. All over the world, people use various foods, various bitters. Now with, oh, sorry, we've already had this one. I will take that out. With the liver and stress, you see very often various things happening, and you will get cellular metabolism of glucose and activity of insulin depressed, a generalized cellular deterioration, impaired blood flow to the liver, inflammatory changes, liver stagnation. So you can get IBS type symptoms through a reduction of bile, where you see in IBS, of course, it fluctuates between constipation and diarrhea. But now they're finding, of course, that 80% of IBS is now SIBO, not IBS at all, and everyone really needs to use the Rome criteria to determine whether it's a true IBS or not. And the liver requires high nutrient saturation to support metabolism and normal functionality. So very important during stress. Free radicals, we all know about those, and that we need antioxidants. Glutathione, which I mentioned a moment ago, is the most important antioxidant for neutralizing free radical and intermediates. Required for key phase 2 detoxification, and it does get used up quite a bit in phase 1. So antioxidants such as vitamin C, vitamin E, selenium, carotenes and zinc support glutathione production and help protect against intermediates produced through phase 1 liver detox. But there are other things that we have at BioNutri which hopefully will do a very good job. So going on to bile now. Bile is a very important part of the liver's function. It's produced in the liver, transported down to the gallbladder for storage, absolutely essential, because a reduction can lead to cholestasis, which is impaired bile flow basically from the liver to the duodenum, and increased toxicity. It's made up of bile salts, cholesterol, lecithin and bilirubin, and we do need a good dose of beneficial bacteria to conjugate bile. And so you can appreciate dysbiosis of the gut overloads the liver. And sodium, of course, a lot of people have really reduce their diets in sodium, but we do need a certain amount because it's important for bile production and function. And low sodium in the gallbladder can lead to stones because you need it to soften calcium and also alkalize chyme sufficiently, so you don't get burning up after eating. And sodium is also important to control pH as well. So pretty essential. And very important bile for the emulsification of fats, and antibacterial, antiparasitic, and it activates the absorption of our fatty acids, monoglycerides, and cholesterol. And it's the route of excretion for bilirubin and fat-soluble toxins. So if you see very pale stools, you'll know something's not quite right. Also for the absorption of our fat-soluble vitamins. Now, if people go on very low-fat diets, that puts a strain on the liver and gallbladder, and the bile is not used, and then you can run into gallstones. I think we all realise that there's a few gallbladders that are taken out surgically, and it's very sad really, because it's a shame that this has happened. Is it because they've been on very low fat diets, or is there another reason? And that's the big one for me, constipation, because it slows up peristalsis, fat malabsorption, pale, oily, excess fatty stool, floating stool, fatty food intolerance, gallstones, and nausea. It really is a major port of call, the bile. And if you get reduced bile flow, i.e. gallstones, that could lead to liver damage, jaundice, pale stools, and itchiness. If you've got someone who's become itchy, well, I start thinking about the liver. I start thinking about things like blastocystis hominis as well, because that can make people itchy as well. Also histamine, stuff like that. Bacterial overgrowth, so dysbiosis, markedly increases the concentration of unconjugated bile acids, and that may lead on to gut mucosal injury. Hormone regulation. One of my first ports of call, again, with anything to do with the reproductive hormones. If somebody's got an imbalance, so you're looking at menopause, menstrual problems, breast problems, prostate problems, whatever it might be, that has an underlying reproductive hormone imbalance, then I will use the Lignum Plus, which is the husk of the flaxseed, but I will also use tyrosine, and particularly in polycystic ovarian syndrome, because that can be a dysregulation of sex hormone binding globulin, or SHBG, which then enables too much testosterone. So very important that we get that into check and get the homeostasis of that. And of course, we all know that stress can disrupt hormone balance. And synthetic hormones also can stress the liver, so very important. So female hormones, disrupted by poor liver function, poor blood sugar control, poor adrenal, thyroid, pituitary function. If you've got that, use Tyro Plus. Viral infection, use elderberry. Gut bacteria dysbiosis, well, we have a range of products for that, depending what's going on. And there are monthly and daily rhythms to the liver. Reacts with the menstrual cycle. It has connections with PMS and cravings. And as far as the thyroid hormone goes, very complex relationship exists between the thyroid and the liver. And I will always use tyrosine in thyroid problems. It makes reverse T3 as a backup mechanism, so you don't have too much T3 hormone. And so the liver will try and control that. Cortisol directly inhibits T4, or causes the liver to produce more T3. So very important that we have optimal liver function. And I've put a few of the main liver problems in here. I'm not going to go into these now, but if anybody wants to discuss, particularly the two that come up quite frequently are Wilson's disease and Gilbert syndrome. Sometimes you get hemochromatosis, but always happy to help with those. And finally, on the negative side of things, when people consume too much what I call fructose, not the fructose that you find naturally in fruit and vegetables. I'm talking about the table sugars, the honeys, the agars, the fruit juices, but in particular, when people are eating processed foods, this high fructose corn syrup, which can then cause higher levels of fructose, which the liver then finds difficult to deal with. And this is what fructose can do. It can elevate triglycerides, increase LDL, promotes the buildup of fat around the organs, increases blood pressure. So if somebody has got blood pressure, it's useful to have a look and see what fructose their intake is in their diet. Also makes tissues insulin resistant, and so on. So going on to the products now, this is the center of the wheel that I call, which is so important, tyrosine, and it's a very natural approach using food extracts. So at BioNutri, we don't overstimulate with our products. We provide nourishing foods which the organs and the body will take up naturally as support, and will just be enough to start the pathways from hopefully functioning properly, so to biological advantage. And both phase 1 and 2 pathways need supporting, and everything that the liver and gallbladder need is in tyrosine. You don't need to go anywhere else. It has every nutrient in it. And food provides the elements for the liver to utilize substances to carry out its function in biological priority. Very broad use. And this is what it has in it. And Lactobacillus plantarum is interesting because it's bacteria that can help with fat metabolism, so that the liver doesn't get overburdened with fat. And it's in a food base of turmeric, artichoke, and dandelion. And this is dandelion, and it's a herbal bitter. So along with artichoke, it's going to encourage the gallbladder to decongest and also help for bile flow. And it is a blood purifier, it promotes cleansing, and has a diuretic effect on the liver, kidneys, and gallbladder, so aiding their function. Also, not just bile flow, but good support for bile production, and helps to regulate blood glucose and promotes elimination of plasma cholesterol. And there's a few more there. So I won't read them all out, but you've got the slides. Very nutritive. Don't use dandelion ever with lithium or quinolone antibiotics. And artichoke, which is a cholagogue again, helps the flow of bile, helps against fats, and stimulates the metabolism. And also turmeric, which helps with retraction of the gallbladder and bile production, helps to regenerate liver tissues. We all know it's anti-inflammatory, helps digestion, it's a blood purifier and an antioxidant scavenger. We also have it, our pure in the tea, and I know this is the size of the glass vials that our tea is produced in, and you get every part of the plant because this is finely ground, and I know Ed thinks it's very good in a latte, so if you want to use it for that, it gives it that wonderful golden colour. Or you can use turmeric in food or any other liquids. All the Aquasol teas can be used in any liquids. There's a list of beneficial foods for the liver there. So I won't read that out, but that's just for your information, but I'm sure you know that probably already. And also just going on to a product called Phytoepicel, which is a fantastic, recently introduced product from BioNutri. And it has dandelion leaf, dandelion root, milk thistle, chamomile, which when put together with Lactobacillus plantarum, produce some secondary metabolites called luteolin and apigenin. And these have shown to help with maintaining normal epithelial cell function. And when you think about epithelial cells throughout the body, this is a very, very important product. And hepatocytes, or liver epithelial cells, most of the cells in the liver are hepatocytes, and they give rise to the basic structure of the liver. It's also abundant in mitochondria, and they are the cells of the liver are grouped together to form functional units referred to as liver lobules. We also have green tea and D-limonene in there, along with vitamin B3. And basically what Phytoepicel does, it helps to normalize the epithelium in the body. And I don't just use it alongside tyrosine, but I would use it for the gut as well. Very often people reach out for glutamine and acetylglucosamine for leaky gut, but you can use Phytoepicel for the gut wall. It's fantastic. Also for hay fever, because it's normalizing cells. There's many, many, many applications. And if any of you want my notes on Phytoepicel, please do ask. In Phytoepicel also is milk thistle, and it contains silymarin, but also the most active component is silibinin, and it helps with phase 2. It's very antioxidant. It stops toxins binding, so it helps to protect liver cells, but it also stimulates protein synthesis to enhance liver cell regeneration. But silymarin also promotes glutathione production, and glutathione not only is needed in quantity in the liver for both phases, but also helps protect the intestines from inflammatory damage. So again, phytoepicel within the gut, very good. And this is plantarum. I've just spoken about this, but it's very good for epithelial barrier function as well, so leaky gut, and supports the bioavailability and biological activity of plants, including the chamomile, dandelion, and milk thistle. So here is Aquasol, and this is about our new range of teas, and these are just fantastic because you can use these as an adjunct to the products, but you could also use them on their own, or if somebody's on polypharmacy, it may be very useful to use them in isolation. And we source the best quality organic herbs around the world, fair trading with skilled farmers who maintain the complexity and full integrity of the herb. Super fine grain, tiniest granules. When you have tea in a tea bag, you throw most of the herb away, not with this. They're not concentrated, it's the whole herb, but you are getting the whole herb. You're getting all the nutrition because it's in super fine grain. So zero waste, put into yogurts, liquids, hot, cold, food, whatever you want. And here's what we have at the moment. Green tea, particularly for the liver. The green tea, the polyphenols in there, very, very good as an antioxidant and helps with the liver. So very important. I have the paper on that if anybody wants it. And then we come on to some other teas which can be very helpful for the liver. Well, there's the paper, I have actually put it in. Green tea, fantastic for increasing glutathione and plasma antioxidant capacity, particularly in metabolic syndrome. So, sorry, I'll just go back. Artichoke leaf tea, that will help with liver and gallbladder, of course. And I've mentioned the turmeric, I've mentioned the gotu kola. So quite a few there that you can use for liver and gallbladder health. This is what we're all about. If you are first timers to this webinar, ingredients together, enhancing or improving their biological activity and bioavailability. And it's John Sterling who puts all the formulations together. And this is just a little bit about us. We're routinely confronted by clients in an inflammatory, congested state with a lifestyle that doesn't sufficiently nourish them. So a lot of practitioners do intervene with individual or isolated supplements, but a lot of them may not have the bioavailability and biological activity, like the BioNutri range, which is a set of nutrient combinations. And we don't go simply bombarding a stressed or weakened system because that can be overstimulating or ineffective. So it's all about biosynthesis, and it's all about the process through which basic nutrients and substrates are enzymatically activated into becoming much more than simply the sum of their parts. This is our core focus. So we do system products. The range is very compact and comprehensive. We draw on a vast amount of experience, and that helps to ease client management, improve compliance, and is very cost effective. And we blister pack an awful lot of our range It keeps it fresh. You don't have the pot opening and closing so that you've got moisture and oxygen going in and degrading the product. And we take responsibility for much of our own procurement, of particular importance in dealing with botanicals and ensuring the best constituent value of the end product. And I think this is the last slide. Do join us on our website. We have a password protected practitioner page. The website, when you go onto it, the general public can go on firsthand, but the practitioner page, the password is lowercase nutrition 2009. You can have access to our video clips, webinars, catalogue pages, and seminar listings if we ever get going again and coming out. Do join us on BioNutri for practitioners. Love to see you there. And of course, we have our professional catalogues. If anybody wants our up-to-date catalogues, we do the BioNutri one here. This is the BioNutri catalogue handbag size, I'm pleased to say, and the Aquasol catalogue as well with the teas in. If you go through to an email, info@bionutri.co.uk, we will send you those catalogues. We also do free samples for clients who are very sensitive, kinesiology kits, and full technical support by myself or Ed, who's our master herbalist, and any product training that you want, or any second opinions on cases, then do let us know. We're always on the end of a phone or something else. So, and also you can order direct through BioNutri or the natural dispensary. Our telephone number is 0121 628 1901. And thank you very much for listening. I hope you found it useful. So I'm going to hopefully see Ed coming back on now, because I think
Hi, Sue.
having a look at the questions in the chat room. So
Hi, Sue. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you, I'm afraid.
Okay. So, Sue, could you? I'm going to telephone you, and I'll tell you what to do.
Unmute.
I'm sorry about this, everybody. We've had some problems with Sue's sound this morning. 1 second, I'll see if I can get through to her. Hi, Sue.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Sue, have you got your microphone plugged into your computer?
Yeah, why?
If you perhaps unplug that, it might free up your sound, because I think it's interfering with your speakers. Can you can you hear me on the speakers now, Sue? Yeah, I can only hear you on. Can you hear me on your speakers now? No. Okay. Sue, what if I put questions to you over the phone like this, and then you answer? You can answer them, because I've just got a list of them on Word. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute myself.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Is the liver implicated in tinnitus, is the first question. Quite possibly, because I think that the thyroid is implicated in tinnitus. So, and of course with circulation, I'd have to look at the history with the practitioner to see where the problem might be arising, but quite possibly, yeah.
The next question, Sue, is any help somebody put their gallbladder removed 12 years ago, but vomiting still is
Yes, I think, yes, okay. Somebody has asked about gallbladder removal, and I will say that tyrosine is fine to give to people who've had their gallbladder removed. In this particular instance, someone is querying the fact that there's too much bile. Is that right, Ed? Yeah, too much bile. What tends to happen when the gallbladder is removed, the bile then just goes straight through into the duodenum. So I think on that case, I would support with the beneficial bacteria in the gut to help with the bile metabolism, but also, yes, try tyrosine and just have small amounts of fat in the meals and not skip meals and not eat too late either. I think that would be my advice, probably.
Okay. We've had a couple of questions. Can homocysteine levels cause night tremors?
Well, I've never had experience of anybody saying that, but it's only nightmares. But that's the sort of thing I think I would need to have a look at and delve into. So whoever's asked that question, if you want to email me, we can have a look at that one together, because I've never had anyone come to me with someone having night tremors. So I'd need to investigate that.
Okay. And I think maybe we could both answer this one. Is drinking a good quality loose leaf green tea as effective as drinking or better than drinking a supplement? I think, but if you don't mind, I'll answer that one, Sue, if that's okay with you. So one of the extracts are great, but especially in concentrating things like catechin levels, the main polyphenol that you find in green tea. But one of the problems with concentrating any herb is that you either lose other constituents or you over concentrate constituents that you might not want. Some of the catechins are slightly toxic for the liver and difficult to detoxify. So if you take a very strong extract for a long period of time, there is the potential to gather up toxicity in the liver. So one of the reasons we make the Aquasol teas the way we do is that you get the most exposure to the positive catechins whilst not undermining any wider constituents or exposing yourself to unnecessary levels of polyphenols that are more difficult to detoxify in the liver. Now, one of the things that we find particularly with the green tea is that we actually have 4 times more of the most highly recognized catechin than you get in a standard 4-to-1 extract. So you get quite high levels of active ingredient just a result of having a much higher surface area in the tea. So that's my thoughts on that. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Sue.
No, nothing at all. That's fine.
Okay. Okay. There's a question wondering if diatomaceous earth would help to support phase 2. I've got no idea.
I can't remember. I don't think I know either. That's one I'd have to look up, I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, you can possibly get back to Sue on that one. Can you explain the link between elevated beta glucuronidase levels with high E. coli and healthy bile production?
Yeah, because what's happening in the gut is you're getting more toxicity, and it's all centered around having enough beneficial bacteria. So, and that, I think, probably affects methylation as well. It's not a simple answer, but sorry, what was the last bit of that question, Ed?
Sorry, it was glucuronidase with high E. coli.
Oh, yes, I mean, bile production is affected through the gallbladder, of course, but it's the metabolism of the bile acids and the regeneration that's going on that's going to be affected if you've got dysbiosis of the gut. So the two are so intimately linked. You know, the gut needs to be functioning, the liver needs to be functioning, and everybody needs to be eating the right foods in order for the metabolism of bile from start to finish to be. And of course, E. coli is one of those bacteria that if it's overgrown, then it can cause all number of problems.
Okay, and can you perhaps?
Can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, Sue. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Sorry.
So, if the stool is pale, if a client is presenting a pale stool, does this have any implications with the liver?
Yes, because it's the pale stools. It's in the notes. It's lack of bilirubin, so the liver's under stress, basically.
Okay, and moving on, we'll just do a few more questions. If somebody has a liver or gallbladder issues, how long would they need support? Can you deplete these organs or your system?
I don't quite understand the question about depleting organs, but are they asking about how long you would use supplements?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, as a naturopath, you want to get to the root cause, and diet is everything, and that's always going to have a maximum impact. I mean, we would only use supplements as a support for health, you know, to try and start to help the liver and gallbladder, but I wouldn't go on and on with the supplements. 6 months maximum. Usually we say 3 months, but it depends on what's going on and what sort of other support the client's getting, and also what dietary habits they have. So it's not an easy question to answer, I'm afraid, as to how you would use the supplements. But of course you've got the teas as well, which people can then use afterwards as general support for the liver if they're in bad habits. So
absolutely. Absolutely, and either artichoke or devil's claw would be particularly helpful from the Aquasol range in maintaining good liver health and bile production. Sue, what would you think of people taking? There's been a couple of people ask about this levothyroxine in conjunction with tyrosine.
Levothyroxine.
Levothyroxine.
Oh, sorry. I think it depends on the whole case. I think with any drug you have to be careful. If you're going to alter the effect of the drug, then yes, you have to be careful. But then you've got the flip side of the coin with thyroid, that if you're using tyrosine, which is very gentle, then it could help the thyroid hormones, and in turn, along with the levothyroxine, you could start to get too much hormone be produced. So you've got to be a little careful when somebody's on a hormone stimulation drug. I have my thoughts about thyroid drugs, which I'm not going to share here, but I think that getting to the root of what the thyroid issue is, and you may be able to do that because it may be inflammation coming from the gut, which is setting the whole train of stuff going on in the first place. But again, it's on a case-by-case basis, but any drug you have to be careful with against a supplement, and do it in conjunction with the GP.
Fine. Sue, I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to take a question for myself. So the last question I'll put to you is just, can you take, and is there any context under that you would take tyrosine and phytoepicel together?
I think they complement each other completely. Because tyrosine is providing all the nutrients for the phase 1, phase 2 and 6 pathways and for gallbladder function, and the phytoepicel is helping with support normal cell function, as well as tight junctions, and just helping with the nutrition of the cell on top of what you're doing with tyrosine. I think the two together would be superb.
There was somebody else shortly after that question asked about how long you can take milk thistle for, and whether milk thistle was at all toxic. One of the beauties of milk thistle, which we use in the phytoepicel, is that milk thistle is a completely non-toxic compound, and it expunges the liver of a lot of toxicity without adding any extra burden of toxicity to the liver itself. The only question with taking milk thistle for long periods of time is that you are using a component which is quite stimulating for the liver. What we're doing with phytoepicel, which you'll notice that we do with turmeric and tyrosine as well, is we use a very highly concentrated form of the herb in a very, very low dose. And all we're trying to do with the milk thistle is to allow the liver to synthesize the silibinin, which is is sort of the metabolite that is produced by the liver breaking down the silymarin. So it's the byproduct of the silymarin, if you like. And for the purposes of phytoepicel, that silibinin has an excellent benefit in helping to produce and support the growth of epithelial cells, and also support the mucous membrane. So that, I think you can. There's certainly no problem taking milk thistle long term, but I wouldn't take it long term. I think in the case of the phytoepicel, you can certainly take that long term because it is a very, very low dose of the milk thistle.
Yeah.
I think the only other question I think we'll deal with today is the green tea in the Aquasol range like matcha? It has similarities to matcha because it's a powder simply, but matcha is a form of tea that is grown undercover, and that it's grown undercover to increase its chlorophyll levels. So, and as a result of having higher chlorophyll levels, matcha has a much higher mineral content than other forms of tea or green tea. But what you sacrifice in doing that, in growing it undercover and out of the way of sunlight, is that it has a reduced polyphenol content. So a lot of the tannins that you get all those fabulous green tea properties in, you don't get so much of in matcha. Matcha makes a much sort of smoother tasting type of green tea. It's got quite a nutty taste, but it doesn't have that astringent taste that is associated with green tea, which is actually part of its benefit, its antioxidant benefit, and its much wider benefit. So it's similar to matcha in that it's a powder and it can be prepared very, very easily into a sort of healing broth, if you like. But it's the Aquasol tea on as green teas go. It's I sort of think of it as on another level. But I mean, maybe people want to take matcha for its sort of mineral content, and that's fine.
Yeah.
What we'll do, what we've done today is we've recorded this webinar online. So, and we will mail out to everybody with the link to watch it again. And for a lot of the people who didn't manage to make it today, they can watch it again. But what we'll also do is we'll gather up the questions that we haven't managed to answer this morning, and we'll put those to Sue again. And we'll try and get some answers out of her on that, and then we'll mail out those answers with perhaps the certificates and the CPD.
And the PDF of the slides as well. Yeah.
And of course, you'll get the PDF of the slides. And if you have any further questions, you can always contact Sue directly by emailing to suem@bionutri.co.uk. And if you want to put any sort of Aquasol related or botanical questions to me, you can always email me at ed@bionutri.co.uk or ed@aquasol.co.uk, whichever one will come through to the same address. But all that is really left to say is say thank you ever so much for joining us today. I'm sorry if we had some connectivity issues earlier on. Seems to go with doing anything on Zoom these days. But thank you for your patience, and thank you for joining us. And we'll be back next week with something else. We haven't decided what that'll be yet, but it'll certainly be something. All right, we will end the meeting there, and look forward to seeing you all again soon. Okay, bye-bye.